Support comes from Hampton Roads Community Foundation, partnering with donors from all walks of life to improve southeastern Virginia through grants, scholarships, and leadership initiatives. Learn more at hamptonroadscf.org.
Hello, everyone. I'm Barbara Ham Lee. Welcome to Black History Month, the time of year when we celebrate and acknowledge the lives and legacy of African Americans and their contribution to our society. Today, on Another View, we start with the bedrock of the Black community, the church, and specifically gospel music. This toe-tapping, soul-stirring, make-you-wanna-shout music has evolved over the years, but at its core, it's the same. Worshiping God in song and in sermon. Get ready to clap your hands and lift your voices as we talk about the history of gospel music. That's next on Another View, right after this national, regional, and local news from NPR and WHRO News.
Discussing today's topics from an African American perspective, this is Another View.
From the blues to hip-hop, African Americans have driven sonic innovation for more than a century. While styles have changed, there's one sound that's remained constant, a source of strength and courage, comfort and wisdom. Gospel.
Let's look at the gospel.
That was the voice of Dr. Henry Louis Gates promoting his latest docu-series, Gospel. The series will air on WHRO-TV 15 on February 12 and 13 at 9 p.m. Gospel music is a significant way Black folks praise and worship God. It lifts the spirit and provides release from stressful living. I'm Barbara Ham Lee, and welcome to this special edition of Another View. Today, we'll talk about the history of gospel music, its evolution to the mainstream, and we'll listen to some of your favorite gospel songs. Joining me in studio to talk about gospel is Joe Harmon, Director of Choral Activities with Portsmouth Public Schools. Hey, Joe, how you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for being here today. Aisha McCullum, Marketing Director for The Mount at Chesapeake. How you doing, Aisha?
I'm doing very well.
Great. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. And Maynard Scales, General Manager of Hot 91, WNSB-FM, the public radio station at Norfolk State University. Hey, Maynard.
Behold.
Wow.
Good day. How are you?
You know, they always have to start. But we begin our conversation with Stacey Holman, one of the producer-directors of the docu-series Gospel. Hey, Stacey, how are you?
I'm well, Barbara. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you so much for joining us. You know, when I was preparing for this show and I'm listening to all kinds of gospel music, and I just had to raise my hands in praise because that's what gospel does. It goes deep. What has been the reaction that you've been getting about the docuseries?
Well, some people have only seen clips, and that has been enough to get people extremely excited. So everyone is elated. They're looking forward to it. With the success of Black Church, this is just part two of it, or as we called while we were working on it, Black Church the Musical. So people are really looking forward to it. And like you, you're just like, it's pulling up that playlist and just triggering those fond memories of gospel music.
Absolutely. I mean, I can imagine as a producer-director, you know, sometimes you just had to just go, whew, right?
Yes. Yes. It's a lot. I mean, 4 hours, you think like, oh, you can get a lot in. But I mean, we thought because we're starting in the 1930s that we're like, okay, this will be enough. And we're like, no, it's not. I mean, the history is rich. The people are many. The stories are varied. And the choices were hard.
Yeah, I can imagine. So what have you learned about gospel music that you didn't know before you became embarked on this project?
Well, I wasn't really aware of so many heroines. We hear the Thomas Dorsey, we hear the Kirk Franklins, but there are a lot of women that were behind the scenes that were making it happen for them. I think of Sally Martin. She was helpful and instrumental in really putting Dorsey on the map. I mean, she owned, along with Morris, the top grossing publishing company for Black gospel. We're talking about the 30s, 40s. And not many people know, and neither did I know about just her business savvy. And the other thing, too, is I think people don't understand that. I don't want to say all people, but a lot of people don't understand just the time and the work that goes into preparing for a sermon, preparing for a service. And it's a craft. It's an art. Preachers just don't go up there. And yes, the Holy Spirit does move, but the Holy Spirit doesn't want you to do some work. So, you need to kind of start somewhere. And even with the singing, you just think that, it just comes out. But no, I mean, it's a lot of artistry. It's a lot of time and that conversation that preachers and the choir masters have with each other, choir directors. There's an art to it.
Yeah, there's a lot to it. So why gospel and sermon? I mean, why did you think that this would resonate with the PBS audience?
Well, gospel, the Black church was really successful. And there was a lot of stories that we kind of only touched the tip of the iceberg, and we knew we could go deeper. And and because it was so successful, we're just like, this seemed like a natural follow-up. And, I think, too, just it's the time. I think one thing about working with Professor Gates is his timing with his projects is impeccable. It's kind of like it's needed. We need something in this season. There's so much that is just being bombarded with headlines that we just need to be reminded and encouraged. And gospel speaks to all the varied moments that we go through in life. And I feel like the series, it's quite timely in that.
Absolutely. Now, there is also a concert that happens before the docu-series actually airs, correct?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
Tell us about that.
Well, I want to give a shout out to Kristen Carter because she was the director of it. And it was so wonderful for Shayla, who's the other series producer and director, for us just to show up and sit in the seats and just watch an incredible artists, from John Legend to Erica Campbell, who's hosting it with Professor Gates, to Anthony Hamilton's and the Tones, Lena Bird, Miles, just some heavy hitters in the gospel world. So
I tell you, Stacey, I wish you were here in the studio with us, because our other guests are just shaking their heads. Yes.
Yeah, amen.
Now, the gospel concert is going to air. It's called Gospel Live. It airs on February 9th at 9 p.m. here on WHRO-TV 15, folks. So tune into that. And then the following week, follow the documentary. That's just incredible. So where are you going to be watching it from, Stacey?
I'll be watching it at home with a bunch of friends. So
Good.
I'm trying to get my list together, my party list, and we'll be sitting there tapping my foot and just kind of looking at everybody's reaction. I feel like that's where I want to be seeing how people are going to respond.
Absolutely. So. Well, we really thank you for joining us on the show today. We wish you the very, very best, and we'll give you some feedback on what's happening in Eastern Virginia and Northeastern North Carolina as folks tune in to watch what's happening.
Please do. Thank you so much for having me, Barbara.
All righty. You take care. That was Stacey Holman. She is the one of the producer directors of Gospel, which is a docuseries featuring Dr. Henry Louis Gates, and part of the reason why we're here today. So, Joe, I'm going to start with you since you're my resident historian on gospel music. But
oh wow!
But explain for those who may not know exactly what is gospel music. What are the elements of it? What makes it gospel as opposed to a hymn or as opposed to a psalm or
that is a loaded question.
I know.
Gospel music really emerged in the 19th century from an enslaved people. They told their stories through spirituals. So the spiritual really preceded what we see as gospel music of today. Mm-hmm. During slavery, all they had while they were out in the fields and going through their hardships were spirituals, which were songs of, hope and restoration. Some of them told other stories as well, in different codes to get them to freedom. That was kind of like the precursor of, gospel music. As they are freed, now we're getting towards towards the 20th century, in which music is now evolving. Now you have a different take, because you have freed people that are freed but are still in the South. And I believe you said earlier, one of the panelists said that he came from a small Southern church where they had just tambourines, the basic fundamentals for that. And in which gospel began to infuse jazz. It began to infuse just different culture. As people's experiences changed, gospel so changed. Call and response, improvisation, all these elements,
and those are kind of the elements that, regardless of the genre, I guess, of gospel music, because it has changed over the years. Absolutely. But those elements are incorporated in all of them.
You can still find call and response, improvisation, and rhythmic patterns, syncopated rhythms off the beat, rhythms on the beat, sections where there's no music, where you just hear choir, or a worship setting where you just hear the worship going on while someone is singing a basic phrase. Communal worship, meaning you are engaging your audience or the congregants who will be in a church to sing a simple hymn in unison. All these elements go into gospel music. Yes, we have evolved, and we have, choirs that, sing, and, you may say, I could never do that. But you also have the basic Southern, deep South churches where they're small, they're very rural areas where they simply, even to this day, may only have a keyboard player, maybe a bass player, if that, but a drummer, or someone shaking the tambourine. But these basic elements always come back to gospel music.
So we always talk about Mahalia Jackson being the one who kind of put gospel into the mainstream in terms of profit. And so, Aisha, as a woman, as you're thinking about this, because for a long time, a lot of the gospel groups were quartets, men,
Sure.
Male quartets singing. When you think about Mahalia Jackson, what does that evoke for you?
Ooh, that too is a loaded question.
I'm full of them today.
That's quite all right. That's your job. I'm not mad at it. Mahalia, we've gotten to the point now where even people reference her as just that, Mahalia.
Yeah.
And people instantly have some reference, have some framework of art. And it's crazy that the music came in.
Yeah, because they're playing it underneath.
When you hear Mahalia, it's almost as if you can hear her voice. She was this powerhouse that established herself as probably what we would call today as a solo artist. But she did it in association with what was happening in our time.
Let's listen for just a
Sure.
second. Bring it up so we can hear. This was the song. Yes. So this one was called Moving Up a Little Higher, and this was the first gospel crossover song where people actually went out and bought the records, right?
Correct.
I see you nodding, Joe.
Yes, well, she's the queen of gospel.
Absolutely.
Like, you cannot say gospel without Mahalia Jackson, or simply Mahalia. Her name is just so iconic, you just say Mahalia. Like you say Beyonce. You don't say Beyonce knows anymore. You just say Beyonce.
Right.
You say Mahalia. And she sang for so many dignitaries, so many presidents, which is very, the reference in my head is like when Saul had these dreams and couldn't explain them, and he had someone come in and play music for him. It was kind of like she was the person people went to, hey, I'm going through something as a president of the United States or a dignitary of this country. I need someone to sing to me. And her voice would literally make you stop in your tracks. And it was just so powerful, but she knew how to control her gift.
Now she collaborated with oh gosh, his name just went right out of my head. Thomas Dorsey. Thank you. Yes, who is known as the godfather of gospel music. Talk about Thomas Dorsey a little bit. Who wants to do that?
Well, that's probably a little bit out of my space, but one of the things I did want to say about Mahalia, for instance, and her collaboration with Dorsey is, among the top 10 gospel selling artists of all time. A woman who stopped, recording and selling music in 1970, before MTV, before cable, before Gospel FM. Mahalia Jackson is like number 3 on that list, and that list includes Donnie McClurkin and Kirk Franklin, and there's no one else from her time, if you will, that sold,
carried over,
sold like she is in the top 10. Everyone else is relatively, and this is a worldwide number. I think it's something like 18 million copies, which is large in the gospel music industry. So, and then having the Godfather, Tommy Dorsey, for instance, obviously that catapulted her into the stratosphere. I also would probably just add that, the record industry was not kind to black music in general, and gospel music even to a lesser extent. But the idea that she is among the top 5, actually, of all time, just lets you know that the power of her voice and the message in the music is so critical and important.
Wow. So, Tommy Dorsey?
Before you go to Tommy Dorsey, I just wanted to say just how powerful Thomas Dorsey.
I did it too.
Before you go to Dorsey, because we refer to him as Dorsey as well, Mahalia Jackson was so powerful. And just put it in a frame of reference as far as history is concerned, not just gospel music, but history is concerned. We would not know the I Had a Dream speech or I Have a Dream speech if it had not been for Mahalia Jackson. She happened to be standing behind Martin Luther King.
Tell him your dream,
That's
Martin.
right.
Tell him your dream.
That's right.
Tell him about your dream.
And the world would have been deprived if she had not been in position, prepared to sing at that time. It was her gift that put her in position with certain people and in certain places. And she was just simply trying to share the gospel. That was her gift. She was there to share the gospel, but happened to be in that place. And it became something that will forever go down in history.
Absolutely.
Not just for us, but for the world.
And Dorsey, I mean, when he wrote music, created more gospel music, but even within the church, there was a little pushback, wasn't it, Joe, about this whole gospel thing, bringing the devil's music into God's
into
house.
the church. Yep.
So 1930s, he literally infused blues and jazz with religious lyrics to create what we know as gospel music. We know as musicians and those in music and, even in the church that, and he knew at the time, the same people that are playing at church services on Sunday morning are making a living on Saturday night. And it was the same chords. It was the same progressions. It was the same feel. It was just with secular lyrics. He brought that piece away and replaced it with religious lyrics, infusing blues and jazz together to incorporate this beautiful gospel sound as we know it. One of the most perfect examples of that is in The Color Purple, where you see Suge Avery at the juke joint, and she's singing, na na na, her song, na na na, all the songs she sings. I love her all her songs. Can't know all the words, but the same people that were playing in that juke joint were going to church the same morning. They were going, and just so happened that day which was kind of different, where it shows her in the juke joint on a Sunday, and she hears the music from the church. And she brings everyone from the juke joint to the church. That was imagery of showing secular, sacred, but gospel has infused all of those elements. Even now, there's many artists now that if you took away their lyrics and just heard the beat, you would say, oh, it's a hip hop song.
Absolutely. And we're going to get to some of that. But I want to play another song by James Cleveland, Can't Nobody Do Me Like Jesus, as we move a little further into the evolution of gospel. I mean, I know every last one of us sitting here has sung that song in church, or if you didn't sing it, you were clapping to it, you were moving it. What is it about gospel music that gets so deep in your soul? Aisha.
Another loaded question. I think it does. A lot of it has to do with instrumentation. I think the other thing is the lyric. When you are given something that is often repetitive, which a lot of gospel music is, that call and response, those repetitive lyrics, those repetitive patterns, at some point they really begin to sink in. At some point you really begin to internalize not only what you're hearing, but what that makes you feel like. I think gospel music invokes feeling, and that's because of where it comes from. It is a spiritual thing. It is what connects us. The Bible speaks about that is how people connected with God. So it's absolutely the same premise.
Now, beyond being the marketing director of the Mount, which is huge within itself, you're also a praise and worship leader.
I am.
So how do you select the music, the gospel music that you're going to use during that time? And I'm wondering, have you ever been in a situation where you thought, okay, we're going to sing this, but I got into church and feeling the congregation and so forth, you went to that?
Absolutely. So we have an amazing team of worship leaders at the Mount. We have a music director, we have choir directors, we have worship leaders. It is our job as we provoke our leadership to be proactive with subject matter and where they're going with what they're going to say on Sunday morning, so that we can prepare music that is coupled with the message. So a lot of times if Bishop or Pastor LJ happens to be in a series or a certain sermon topic, we take a look at what that needs to do. There are two voices in the house.
The sermon and the music?
And the music. And we, at the Mount in particular, are very intentional about making sure that we speak the same language. So, yes, there have been times, it happens often, and that's a great thing. There are times where you prepare certain music, and it doesn't mean that you don't sing it, but there may be a shift or there may be something that's happening in the atmosphere, and you know, as a worship leader or as a musicians, that we may need to go somewhere else based upon what may be happening in the room. So yeah, but we are intentional and we try to do it 30 days in advance if possible, to plan what the music is going to look like or what our services are going to look like, to make sure that we're on one accord.
I think one thing that's critical to talk about as far as how it gets into your soul, how it gets in your spirit. We got to remember, like, church typically comes at the weekend. Right, so we've had a week, and you hear it in the words often. Boss has been on my back. I can't pay the rent. Whatever those things are, and people often don't realize how much they need a recharge, and even the voice of our pastoral leader sometimes doesn't do exactly what this song is going to do. Like, it's just that catches you in that moment. You identify with those things, and then as we listened to Cleveland just a moment ago, it's very communal. Everybody is singing, everybody is clapping, and then you can kind of look around and realize, oh, this is a human experience to not know how to pay the rent. This is a human experience to, have a sick mother or a father or your child, God forbid, be in the hospital or whatever. And these words, everyone in this church right now is singing these words. Everyone is having the same experience. And I can look over and realize I'm among a family of people who come from a family of people, who come from a family of slavery, or come from a family of oppression, depression, etc. So that's one of the reasons why I think it really can sink into your soul.
Yeah. And Joe, even during the week, at other times, when you find yourself in a situation and you need some comfort, those words come back to you pretty easily.
Very easily. Repetition.
Yep.
your hymns, a simple phrase. Like there's a song now, it's not new anymore, but J.J. Harrison, You Deserve It. My hallelujah belongs to you. You deserve it. So whatever you're going through, God, I thank you for what you're doing in my life. I don't understand what you're doing, but you deserve it. You deserve my praise. Even in my darkest hour, you deserve my praise. It's songs like that. Never Would Have Made It, Marvin Sapp.
Yeah.
Songs like that, they're so repetitive. They're simple songs, like in terms of the message, but simple is what the majority of people need just to carry them through the week.
And that's what catches them. If you're just joining us, we're talking about the history of gospel music with Joe Harmon, Director of Choral Activities with Portsmouth Public Schools, Aisha McCollum, Marketing Director for The Mount at Chesapeake, and Maynard Scales, General Manager for Hot 91 WNSB-FM, the public radio station at Norfolk State University. So the music has crossed over, but then it continues to cross over even more into mainstream programming, R&B programming, and so forth. I want to play, let's listen to a little bit of Kirk Franklin, I Smile, and we'll talk about it on the other side.
I dedicate this song to recession, depression, and unemployment. This song's for you.
Today's a new day. There is no sunshine, nothing but clouds, and it's dark in my heart, and it feels like a cold night. Today's a new day, but where are my blue skies? Where is the love and the joy that you promised me? Tell me it's alright.
I'll be honest with you.
I almost gave up, but a power that I can't explain shower now.
When I think how much better I'm gonna be when this is over.
I smile, even though I hurt, see I smile. I know God is working, so I smile, even though I've been here for a while.
What you do?
Maynard, I can be driving down the street in the car. I just listened to, I don't know, somebody else.
Right.
And then this comes on. How do you program and how do you decide which gospel music one crosses over into the mainstream, and then do you have to look at what's played before it and what's played after it? Does any of that come into your consideration?
Well, I think there are a lot of pieces that go into programming the radio station and how we decide that we're going to enter gospel. And one of the critical things, and we see particularly in FM radio, I guess there's always been a history that FM radio has shied away from gospel music. FM radio would have a gospel moment, an inspirational moment at 5 a.m. and we kind of buried it in first thing in the morning.
Or just on Sunday morning.
Yeah. But, we try to encompass gospel all the time. It's not, if we play 12 songs in an hour, you're not likely to hear it every hour, but you will hear it. So a song like Kirk Franklin, it fits in the format. It's rhythmic. It has a certain sound. And Kirk Franklin, obviously, and others, Mary and several artists like that, do a phenomenal job of creating music that fits with the R&B and hip hop sound. And I would also say we are actually probably talking about it backwards. We've said this multiple times today, call and response. Well, hip hop has been about call and response, like throw your hands in the air, right? That comes from the church. That comes from gospel. But, some of us who, spent most of our Saturday nights out and didn't get up in time to go to church on Sunday, we thought that came from hip hop. That would be me, but that's
Maynard.
but no, that came out of the church, and so we look for ways to incorporate the music that rhythmically and sonically has a sound that complements the R&B music that we're playing, the hip hop music that we're playing, and we try to particularly sneak that in the midday, because when people are at work, at 11:30, you're like, man, I've been here all day and it's just 11:30. I need a pick me up.
So the two of Joe and Aisha, I'll ask this of the two of you. when you're deciding you're going to sing Kirk Franklin in the church, are some of the more seasoned saints receptive, or are they like, there y'all go again? Here's the next generation of bringing the devil's music into God's house?
You want to answer that first?
I can answer.
Okay.
So, let me get it right.
Right.
So yes, in anything new, there's always going to be pushback.
Okay.
Or a ode to what's old and keep it traditional. I can say, and I'm proud of the fact that the church has evolved as a whole. The black church has evolved with music and incorporating all of this with synthesizers and lead guitars and bass players, a worship team, not even having a choir at times, having just a praise team. We've evolved with the sound. I'll never forget, this was back in the 90s, and Shabbat just came out. And my youth choir director, we're going to do this song. And we sang it. We had our kente on. We was ready. We were so excited. We marched in, we singing, and our pastor's face was like, it wasn't like he was angry. He was just, he didn't get it. He was, he was older.
He's like, what are y'all singing?
So that Sunday, that was a Saturday night. We had like a Saturday concert. That Sunday morning, he kind of preached about it, but it wasn't about like, what was that? It was more of, we got to get with the times. I don't know exactly what that was. I want to know more about it. If it's Christ-centered, why can't we bring that into the church? And afterwards, he talked to us as a choir and the choir director, and we gave him insight. It's just, African words talking about, we gave him examples of what the words meant. And he was able to, to get the gist of the song. It's still gospel, it's just a different interpretation of gospel.
Right. Hey, what about for you?
I think for me, it's absolutely about balance. So the answer to your question is, yes, you may have a few, and particularly for, our particular church, you can walk into the Mount on any given Sunday and kind of go, okay, what are we doing here? Because it's the lights and it's the fog and it's the smoke and so that's included. But we also have a sound that is very much balanced, whether the choir happens to be singing that Sunday, because we do rotate. We have choirs, and then we have praise teams as well. I know that the seasoned saints initially were probably, okay, what is happening? Why are we in the dark? Like, why are we sitting in the dark? But the balance that I think we have gotten really good at creating with the music and the service itself is because the church is indeed evolving. And as the church evolves, so does your congregation. And the makeup of your congregation. And the truth of the matter is, we are there to serve everyone. Mm-hmm. But I know for our church, one of our biggest pockets of people are those who are unchurched, who didn't necessarily grow up in the church.
Absolutely.
And it is what is needed to pull them in.
I'm glad you brought up, though, about the lights and so forth, because this was back in the early 2000s, but I went to a gospel concert. It was my first gospel concert in a arena, and I was expecting church. It was like going to a rock concert. I mean, it was, the lights and the music and everything, but it was wonderful. Yep. It was a wonderful experience. I want to play a song, speaking of moving things along and also reaching the unchurched, because where gospel is going now also is into hip hop. And I want to play an artist, and I'm going to play the whole song. An audience, I hope that you will take the time to listen to the lyrics. His name is Lecrae Devon Moore. They call him Lecrae, and he is a gospel hip-hop artist. The name of his song is called Background.
I could play the background. I could play the background. 'Cause I know sometimes I get in the way. So won't you take the lead? So won't you take the lead? And I could play the background, and you could take the confident you run the show, so let me back down. You take the leading role, and I play the background. I know I miss my cues, know I forget my lines. I'm sticking to your script, and I'm reading all your signs. I don't need my name in lights, I don't need a star on the road. And why gain the whole wide world if I'm just gonna lose my soul? And my ways ain't pure if I don't live according to your word. I can't endure this life without your wisdom being heard. So word to every dancer for a pop star, cause we all play the background, but mine's a rock star. Yeah, so if you need me, I'll be stage right. Praying the whole world will start embracing stage fright. So let me fall back and stop giving my suggestions, cause when I follow my obsessions, I end up confessing that I'm not that impressive. Matter of fact, I'm who I are, a trail of stardust leading to the superstar. Yeah,
I could play the background, I could play the background, cause I know sometimes I get in the way. So won't you take the lead? So won't you take the lead? And I could play the background, and you could take the...
Yeah, I had a dream that I was captain of my soul. I was master of my fate, lost control and then I sank. So I don't wanna take the lead, cause I'm prone to make mistakes. All these folks who follow me gon' end up in the wrong place. So just let me shadow you, and just let me trace your lines. Matter of fact, just take my pen, here you create my rhymes. Cause if I do this by myself, I'm scared that I'll succeed, and no longer trust in you, cause I only trust in me. And see, that's how you end up headed to destruction, paving the road to nowhere, pour your life out for nothing. You pull my card, I'm bluffing, you know what's in my hand. Me, I just roll and trust you, you cause the dice to land. I'm in control of nothing, follow you at any cost. And some call it sovereign will, all I know is you the boss. And man, I'm so at ease, I'm so content. I play the background like it's an instrument.
I could play the background, I could play the background, cause I know sometimes I get in the way. So won't you take the lead? So won't you take the lead? And I could play the background, and you could take the...
Joe, it has all the elements.
All the elements. And it's still gospel music.
And the message is powerful.
It is.
You know, talk about bringing in the unchurched. And would you use a song like this, for example, as a way to attract?
Sure. So we do a couple of different things. We would do something like take a Lecrae song. We would do something like take a hymn or, something that is familiar. And, the worship leader or, Urbana, my executive music director, would go to our music director and say, hey, let's change the instrumentation on this. So we may lyrically be singing, I surrender all. But it may sound something very similar to what we just heard. I think again, it's that balance of bringing in or utilizing something that may be familiar to those that they don't recognize as church. So a lot of the secular music that we hear, particularly R&B and hip hop, like we've all said before, it comes from gospel music. But people don't necessarily recognize it as that. So what we do is we essentially take back what belonged to the church, add a little razzle dazzle from secular music, and whether that literally be instrumentation down to the chimes you heard in the background, or it just really depends. But we use some of those things as mechanisms to pull people in because it's familiar.
Yeah, now we're listening to, this is Yolanda Adams in the midst?
That's Whitney.
No, Whitney, I'm sorry. Hold on, help is on the way.
Wait a minute.
You go. You're right.
Georgia
My
Max.
bad. Maynard, do you play background?
Yeah. Background's a part of the playlist, particularly on Sundays. But that would be a song that we would sneak in any time of the day. And the Lecrae's, the Kirk Franklin's, kind of is I think most people would recognize as kind of the beginning of a huge change. And what gospel music is, is a change that's a twofold. Record industry executives had no idea what gospel music could do. They just believed that people who listen to gospel music, they only hear it on Sunday, and it's they didn't know what that is. You mentioned going to a concert. They had no idea what gospel music could do, and they didn't find it profitable. But similar to our Color Purple experience, literally music is what has brought people back to church. So what had to happen is that the Kirk Franklins had to help record industry executives understand that we can make money doing this. And the church found out that we can reach younger, people who are away from church. So this twofold effect brought people back into church and sold records. And then now we in the radio industry are responding in ways to make certain that we do play Yolanda Adams, that we do play Lecrae, that we do play, Smokey Norfolk, or whatever the case may be. And these are great songs. Do you have a gospel show on NSB? 6 8 to 10 on Sunday mornings with Jay Owens. Did you ever think about playing it on a different day or at a different time? We're considering trying to do something in the 5 a.m. hour, Monday through Friday. That is, one of the hardest hours of your life. Getting up in the morning and,
yes.
That's
true.
For us,
and getting ready.
The dog is like barking. He wants to go out. I gotta go talk to this boss this morning. Oh my goodness, I ain't do that report. Lord, just give me some strength. Oh, okay. That's an interesting phenomenon. Joe, do other races, religions and so forth incorporate gospel? Do they listen?
Yes.
Or is it different from the gospel of the Black church?
Gospel, in some ways, is more celebrated in other countries than it is even here in America. I mean, it's crazy. You can go to Korea and they have choirs. You can go on YouTube and find some of the best gospel singing, and they are all Korean.
Wow.
And they stay authentic to the style. They're using their full voice. They're singing in 3-part harmony. They're breaking up parts. They have the bass, the lead, and instruments that they even have from their own country. Like, they have incorporated their own sound, but it is still traditional gospel. It's amazing when you look and see how other cultures respond to gospel music. Same way we have in America, is just their own take on it.
That's interesting.
I just came off my 13th tour.
I was about to say, I thought you went, right?
Yeah, I did. So I've just finished my 13th tour with Earl Bynum. We went as Earl Bynum and the Mountain Unity Choir. There were 10 of us, but it was the Mountain Unity Choir. And every year, and again, I say 13 not to pat myself on the back, the progression from when we first started going on tour, these people...
Where did you guys go?
Europe. So we went in Italy, Scandinavia. We did 13 shows we did 10 shows in 13 days.
Wow.
When we first started touring, the people didn't speak English very well at all. But we sang in English. We sang some traditional gospel. We sang some more contemporary gospel. And our sets have pretty much been, they've evolved some, but pretty much been that. From singing gospel choir music to praise and worship music. Mm-hmm. This time I noticed that a lot more people understood what we were saying, but that the theme has always been they could feel what we were singing. And even though they didn't understand the language, they understood the relationship. They understood the channel from which it was coming from. Wow. And they love gospel music. They're slightly behind from where we are in America as far as contemporary gospel. So they get off on Oh Happy Day. And, we sing those types of songs, and they're right there. All happy. I mean, they are going bananas. And then we will end the show with something like "You Are Not Alone" from Michael Jackson, or "We Are the World" from Michael Jackson, because to them, that's all gospel music.
Wow. That's powerful. So what is the difference? Because you've said this a couple of times, the difference between praise and worship versus gospel music. I mean, what songs, in other words, would you use in each category, or how do you differentiate that?
So let me say it's all gospel. I probably kind of shot myself in the foot a little bit by using the terms interchangeably, because praise and worship is more so what you would see with a worship leader in a team. Praise and worship is, although she is a gospel artist, someone like Tasha Cobb Leonard, I'm sorry, sings a lot of what would be considered worship music. And you've got a lot of our, non-African American brothers and sisters that sing a lot of worship music. And what happens is we exchange it. So they may, Break Every Chain was done by white artists initially. Tasha re-recorded it. Really? And it became huge. And then somebody else re-recorded it. We exchange. And then they do the same thing with us. They may take, a piece of our material and make it more, I'm going to make up a word, worship-y, as opposed to gospel. And we do. There is quite a bit of exchange. And there is a sect of Black artists that do what we would be considered more worship music than choir music or gospel music, but it's all gospel.
And worship music, that would be for smaller number of people,
not
maybe? Not necessarily.
No, because we sing worship music to thousands every Sunday. It is.
I meant, but of the people who are singing.
Usually,
the group, usually the group is smaller.
It's a lead singer and 3 to 6 to 12 backup a worship team members. So usually that's what you would see or would hear. But it all depends, because our worship team also does traditional gospel music as well. We try to do a mixture.
Do you guys have a favorite?
Oh, that's hard.
Favorite of
between traditional gospel music or contemporary or you just love it all, or
so with me being a choir director.
Okay, go ahead, Joe.
I'm a choir director, but choral music, everyone knows. Well, most musicians know that there is a beautiful correlation between choral music and gospel music.
Absolutely.
With the Baroque period of music, the Baroque period was from 1600 to 1750. Their music was heavy. It was extra. It was in your face. You have this big, beautiful sound that you have that we've incorporated into gospel music. So when you hear Ricky Dillard's choirs, when you hear Hezekiah Walker, when you hear the old Kurt Franklin and the family, this big, in your face sound, 3-part harmony, very raw, authentic sound, that is more of your traditional choir sound. We've seen that evolve to where choirs have gotten more articulate and gotten more polished over the time. What's a choir? I see like Donald Lawrence, Kurt Carr, where they're more like a praise team type setting in terms of people, but they sing like a choir,
right? And
they're very polished, and they have a great blend of choral and gospel. Richard Smallwood, total praise.
Yeah,
you can sing it in a choral concert, you can sing it at a gospel concert, you can sing it at a cookout. And everyone will still get with you because it is just that beautiful.
It's just that beautiful. It's just that. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. You have a favorite?
I don't. I work in gospel music all the time. I, too, have a vocal degree. So I come from, in addition to a broadcasting degree. So, but I tell people all the time, I'm an R&B girl. That's why when they started playing Whitney, I'm like, no.
Yo, exactly. You were right on it.
That's Whitney Houston. But the funny thing about that is most people know Whitney as a pop artist, but Whitney was church.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right. Aretha,
Aretha,
Whitney,
all of it. So I love it all.
Yeah.
I love it all. And I love the fact that we need it all.
Absolutely. Maynard?
When I think of what, I'm literally taking that question as what's a song? What's a favorite song? Because, to me, it's music, right? Knowing the difference between worship and gospel, I'm a little bit, I'm lost in that space. But I remember, and this is just the experience, one night, my wife and I have returned to living in Virginia, and we were just trying to sort through some things. It was in 08, 09, the housing crisis was going on. We were trying to find the right house, whatever was going on.
Mm-hmm.
And I heard Yolanda Adams, "This Battle's Not Yours."
Yeah.
And I'm driving, and I'm like, I'm about to go get some McDonald's. I'm about to go get a Big Mac, and I'm crying, and I had no idea. And so that always, which I think that would be more worship. Is that?
I think it just hits you where it hits you,
where
right?
it hits you. But that particular song, if you listen to it, it's got that choir in the background.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like, it teeters that line of, again, whatever you call it.
So we got about 2 minutes left, and I've got to ask you, Joe, about the Hammond organ and its role.
Whoa, we need
because I'm telling you, I love that organ. You got 2 minutes.
In 2 minutes.
I need a little run
Hit
right
it, Joe.
there.
Okay, in a nutshell, of course, America was introduced to the pipe organ. It takes so much construction to have pipes, and you have to construct them into your church. It's embedded in your church. Right. And you have people that work on the pipe organ. That's very hard to. As our churches progressed, and as we were freed, now we're in the 40s, the 50s, and we want a different sound. We want the organ sound. I'll be honest, many of our black churches couldn't afford the pipe organ. Yeah. So we tried to come up with an alternative. How can we get that sound of an organ, but make it our own? And we came up with the Hammond.
Yeah, that organ.
And it has a Leslie, and some churches have 2 Leslies, 2 or 3, and you can change the sound, the vibrato of it, how quick the Leslie sounds, how slow it is. It's still found in most of your churches. Even now for concerts, it could be a popular artist that's contemporary, but they may have one song that needs an organ, and they're going to roll that organ in on that concert stage just for that one selection, because it's a very distinctive sound that an organ has.
It is a very distinctive sound, and to me, it just encapsulates, I don't know, it just brings it all together.
Well, everyone knows that an organist is like a one-man band.
Right.
Yeah. You have every instrument literally here, and you're playing with your feet.
And you're playing with your feet. Absolutely. You guys have just been fabulous. This is Joe Harmon. He's director of choral activities with Portsmouth Public Schools. Aisha McCollum, marketing director at the Mount at Chesapeake, and Maynard Scales, the general manager for Hot 91 WNSB-FM. Thank you guys so much for being with us. I really, really appreciate it. And we hope that today's show brought a smile to your face, audience, and lifted your spirit. As a reminder, the docu-series Gospel by Dr. Henry Louis Gates, it airs on WHRO-TV 15 on February 12 and 13 at 9 p.m. Now, if you'd like to hear this show again or share it with a friend, you can go to anotherviewradio.org and download the podcast. And please sign up for our eView newsletter. It is a once-a-week reminder of upcoming shows. Next week on Another View, the original Another View Roundtable. Roger Chesley, Bill Thomas, Carol Pretlow, and Will Leviste. Tune in to see what the OGs have to say about current events. Our theme music is an original composition created especially for Another View by Jay Sennett. Lisa Godley is our show producer. Jordan Christie is our audio engineer, and Dr. Barry Graham answered our phones. I'm Barbara Ham-Lee. Let us all remember that Black history is American history. We'll see you next Thursday at noon for Another View. And we leave you today with Oh Happy Day.
Happy day. Oh, 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 happy day. When Jesus walked. When Jesus walked. Oh, when he walked. When Jesus walked. When Jesus walked. When Jesus walked. Washed my sins away. Oh, happy day. Oh, it's a happy day.
Support comes from Hampton Roads Community Foundation, carrying out your charitable wishes forever. Whether it's helping shelter animals, feeding the homeless, enhancing the arts, or supporting students, Learn more at leaveabequest.org.